Day one of free agency was an absolute banger. There were a million moves which went around, and today I'll be dropping three videos based on three categories. One of them talking about the players who stood with their previous franchises, second one talking about the players who left their previous team, and third one talking about young players and other players who have extended with their previous team. This video is going to be about players who stood with their previous team, and let's get right into it. Leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I drop regular NBA content and I have a series going on called the greatest playoff runs ever. I dropped the first video for it recently about Giannis Antetokounmpo's 2021 playoff run, and I'd really appreciate it if you checked it out. Moving on back to the video. Let's start off with the Cleveland Cavaliers re-signing Jarrett Allen for a $100 million 5-year contract. I like this move. The Cavaliers now have one of the best young frontcourt pairings in the league with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. They also have one of the best defensive frontcourts in the league when we include Isaac Okoro too. Jarrett Allen is making around $20 million in this deal, and this isn't really an untradeable contract. And as the salary cap keeps expanding, it always gives the Cavs wiggle room to trade Allen if Mobley is better playing at the 5 or something similar to that. If the Cavs figure out what they're going to do with Collin Sexton, they might have a very solid starting 5 in the Eastern Conference. I like this move, but I think we'll know if this move was a better one based on what the Cavs do with Collin Sexton and if Allen is one of the players they really want to be paying if they ever become a championship contender. Because at the end of the day, every team's goal is winning a championship, and having a player with a $20 million contract on their team means he's usually one of your 3 best players during this championship run, and as high as I am on Allen, I don't really know if he's at that level yet. Moving on, let's talk about the 2 experienced guards who have re-signed with their teams after having a great last season, Mike Conley and Chris Paul. Let's start off with the recent finalist, Chris Paul. I'm going to be very honest here, I really am not very high on this move. The Suns are paying Chris Paul $30 million a year until he's into his 40s. Sure, Chris Paul's game will probably age well into his late 30s, but the Suns are going to have to pay Ayton a big contract, who I believe is more important for the future of the Suns, and they might have to pay Mikal Bridges quite a lot of money, which I really don't think the Suns can afford without going way into the luxury tax, and their owner has quite a history of not going into the luxury cap during the Steve Nash runs. Bridges is probably the best 3-and-D wing in the league right now, and is going to be paid big money. Cam Johnson too, who was on a very convenient rookie contract this year, will have to be paid money. But the Phoenix Suns were basically forced to pay Chris Paul after what he did for them last year, and he got paid, rightfully so. But at the same time, I think I can very confidently say the core of Chris Paul, Devin Booker and Ayton are making another finals run without a lot of luck in the playoffs is going to be very hard. They had a lot of luck in the playoffs with all due respect to the exceptional run they just had. If they still had money to play around with, I think they could have made a big move in the near future. The 2021 finals was probably the best chance for Phoenix of winning a title, and I'm quite iffy about their future right now. I like the Booker and Ayton duo, but I don't know if a 36-year-old Chris Paul is the best fit for them and their timeline in the upcoming years. Mike Conley's contract was also quite a similar situation to the Phoenix Suns, but I like it way more than I like the Chris Paul contract. Conley got only a 3-year $73 million contract, which is a lot, but it isn't $30 million. A massive reason why the Jazz were so good this season in the regular season and quite into the playoffs was the Gobert and Conley pick and roll. The way Utah's offense runs, they need a talented playmaker, and Mike Conley provides them with just that. I think they would have had a better chance in the playoffs if they had Mike Conley, but the main reason I like this deal more than Chris Paul is because they play in Utah. Utah is a small market team, and let's be honest, no player wants to sign with Utah in free agency. The Jazz basically had no other option, and they got Conley on a much more expendable and a passable contract. The Jazz will have a lot of work to do in draft and stuff in the near future, but they have a core 3 who they're paying big money right now: Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, who don't really have such a big chance to win a ring with the way they play, but they'll be an amazing regular season team and a decent playoff team who with a bit of luck can make quite a run in the playoffs. While we're on the point guard front, let's talk about the Knicks point guard and the signings the Knicks made. Firstly, Derrick Rose was signed to a 3-year $45 million contract. Rose was the best playoff performer for the Knicks and provides them much required stability and offense. He was an important part of the Knicks last year and probably would have won 6th Man of the Year if he played for them the entire year. It will be interesting to see how they're going to play him for an entire year, because him starting removes the stability from their bench, and him playing off the bench makes the offense stagnant in the starting five, as we saw in the playoffs against the Hawks. They also brought back Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks too, who give the Knicks quite a deep team. I'll talk about Fournier and the Knicks more in my second video. Let me put aside some of the signings I have like zero comments on. Mo Harkless re-signed with the Kings, Furkan Korkmaz re-signed with the 76ers, Solomon Hill re-signed with the Hawks, JaMychal Green and Corey Joseph re-signed with the Pistons. Yeah, okay, cool. Good job re-signing them, I guess. Let's now talk about some wings. Norman Powell re-signed with the Portland Trail Blazers, which I was really not expecting. They got him for a decent contract of 5 years for $90 million, which is about $18 million a year. I like this move because CJ McCollum has been thrown around in rumors a lot since basically he's been on the team, and he's been shipped to basically every team at this point. And this time I really think he's going to get traded because he's probably their only option by which they can get better and build a championship contender around him. If they do trade him, Norman Powell can be a much cheaper version of CJ. He might not be as good on offense, but his guard defense is very underrated in my opinion. And I think he can play the CJ role quite well if they get another player like they're rumored to get, like a Ben Simmons through a CJ McCollum trade. The players the Raptors got in return for Norman Powell was Gary Trent Jr., who also got a 3-year $54 million contract with the Raps. I think it's a slight overpay, but not such a big one that it changed the structure of the team in the future. He provides the Raptors a much required shooter and an off-ball player. He fits perfectly into basically any team in the league because he can shoot. The Raptors will now have a solid starting five, whose defense will be ridiculous, with Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes and maybe Pascal in the five. They can play around with that small ball lineup, and if they get a solid center, the Raptors should be good to go and be a competitive and relevant team again. The Mavericks also re-signed their wing player in Tim Hardaway Jr. His contract is alright and he provides the Mavericks the same he did until now: scoring, length on defense and a solid shooter alongside Luka Doncic. He can be a trade asset for them if they want to put a better player alongside Luka. And the Mavs also re-signed Boban, which is probably the best move in free agency history. The signing and the name Boban Marjanovic speak for themselves, and I don't think I have to weigh much on it. And another shooter who got signed is Duncan Robinson, who got signed for a 5-year $90 million contract with the Heat, which I feel is a slight overpay, but again not a big overpay that it affects the team very much. He's the only 3-point threat off ball for the Heat in the starting lineup and should be a great fit for them like he's been for the past 2 years. Again, I'll weigh in more on the Heat while talking about the Kyle Lowry signing in the next video. Nicholas Batum, Blake Griffin and Bobby Portis wrap up the re-signing side of free agency from day one. Batum is back on the Clippers on a much better contract and will again provide them with great experience, solid defense and much required playmaking for them. The real question for the Clippers should be the most unpredictable player of all time, Kawhi Leonard. Blake Griffin re-signed with the Nets, and I have no comments on that too, because as long as the Nets have their big three intact, it genuinely doesn't matter who's going to play around them. And finally, to wrap things up, Bobby Portis re-signs with the Bucks. This is genuinely a touching signing because he took a pay cut, a massive one, during the prime of his career to stay with a team he genuinely loves. He's the best energy guy in the entire league and was one of the biggest reasons they had so many comebacks last year. This is an absolute W for the Bucks, getting a player who fits like a hand in a glove next to Giannis for such a steal of a contract. He really wasn't joking when he said he loves Milwaukee, huh? Well, that concludes part 1. Be sure to check out part 2 where I talk about the movement in the league from day 1 of free agency. And that's all I have for you today. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video and stay tuned.